No puedo creer que esté dentro de la prisión de Sadnaya en Siria. Yeah, I read that it was done by Hafez al-Assad in the 80s, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, by like a French designer. And it has been used back then until now, so like a lot of scary memories here. First, every Syrian family has like a prisoner here. I had like an uncle here who was here, and he had a really bad story. Like a father and his son, and then the son saw his father being like died in front of him. They killed him in front of him, and then he kept them inside the cell.
Do you trust him?
Actually, I believe the best thing for Syria is democracy, but also I believe we are not ready for democracy yet after like 54 years of dictatorship.
Yeah.
So I hope the best for our country, but I think we should get a non-military president.
Ok, el video de hoy va a ser uno de los más difíciles que haya hecho en mi vida. Y como leyeron en el título, voy a ir a una prisión, la llaman el Matadero, acá en Siria. Y es en donde el antiguo régimen pues torturaba a la gente, los desaparecía. Más que una prisión, era como una fosa común. Y si me preguntan si tengo miedo, de verdad que más que miedo tengo como un poco de dolor de barriga. De hecho, ni desayuné. Pero a la vez siento como una responsabilidad de mostrar cómo era la realidad tan solo unos meses atrás. De hecho, con las pocas personas que he podido interactuar, ya que bueno, no manejo el idioma, pero he tenido un traductor durante el viaje, y lo que me han dicho cuando me ven grabando es: muestra todo lo que dejó el antiguo régimen, muéstralo para que la gente se entere en el mundo. Obviamente había censura infinita, había represión, y lo que se sabía en el mundo exterior era más una suposición, porque era muy difícil saber la realidad. Obviamente se suponían cosas terribles, pero como todo el desastre que dejó este gobierno no se veía. Y hoy varios youtubers nos hemos dado a la tarea de venir, de documentar y de mostrar al mundo la realidad. No me he podido mover porque estoy en un callejón que está totalmente trancado, con un carro cargando ahí maletas. Y bueno, yo también tengo mi maleta, ya estoy saliendo del hotel. Voy a el carro en donde me voy, pero no puedo pasar por ahí. O sí, vamos a ver. Shukran. Ahora sí, seguimos. Las calles son demasiado angostas acá en Damasco. Miren esto, viene un carro ahí, que por cierto me sorprende, uno de los poquitos carros de lujo. Y si me monto en la acera, es que tampoco puedo caminar mucho por la acera, como ven ahí, porque bueno, ya hay un desastre allá adelante. Entonces tengo que lanzarme para la calle otra vez, y así voy. Ah, ok. I think you are behind me. I'm walking back. Miren ese peluchito que se viene con nosotros.
He was crying from the sun.
Quiero que conozcan a Ayub. Él es el que está haciendo posible mi entrada a la prisión de Sadnaya, y también quien organizó todo mi viaje por Siria. Ayub, how long time you have been organizing trips for people who wants to come to Syria?
Since 6 years.
Okay.
2019, when people start traveling again to Syria.
And from when people stopped traveling to Syria, like after the civil war?
After the civil war in 2011, they closed the border, and late in 2019 it reopens again. Then it's closed again after COVID-19 for 18 months.
And how it's been tourism since 2019?
Actually, it's now more like an adventure.
Okay.
And actually it's increasing very well. There's so many people want to travel to Syria.
Yeah.
And now after the fall of Assad, it's much easier and more people are traveling now, which is a good thing for the country.
Awesome. And I have one last question. Everyone who comes to Syria can go to the Sadnaya prison?
No. it's not allowed because now they want to turn it to a museum.
Okay,
So I think they will need some time
okay,
before reopening Sednaya prison.
okay. Well,
This is white.
thank you for taking me. And this is white. Miren qué belleza. Miren, este edificio que estamos pasando era el edificio de inmigración durante el régimen. Justo después de su caída vinieron unos rebeldes pro gobierno que quemaron todo porque ahí habían pruebas que indicaban como crímenes de guerra, adicionalmente de el bloqueo de infinitas personas que no podían entrar, que estaban totalmente bloqueados. Y bueno, para evitar conseguir más pruebas, como que si se necesitaran más pruebas en contra de este dictador, los rebeldes que lo apoyaban pues quemaron absolutamente todo. Acabamos de parar el carro ahí y justo lo que venía antes de llegar aquí era como el área fancy de Damasco. No sé si lograron ver como un gimnasio, un centro comercial y unos edificios, bueno, relativamente modernos dadas las circunstancias que ha tenido que vivir este país. Pero luego, o sea, justo después de esa plaza, miren la cantidad de destrucción que hay alrededor. Y es porque acá era donde solía estar la oposición de Al-Assad. Ayub me cuenta que utilizaron armas químicas, utilizaron barriles llenos de TNT y los lanzaban desde edificios. Por eso es que se ven destrucciones como estas. Bueno, me está contando un pasado bastante interesante que honestamente no sale en internet. No hay noticias de esto. O sea, se comenta como la guerra ya, pero como que si fuese una guerra cualquiera, y en verdad la cantidad de cosas horripilantes que pasaron aquí hay que contarlas.
Area used to be a residential area, and when people wants to move from the city, they buy a house here to start their life. And when the war started, this hood, which called Jobar, used to be the front line. That's why you see a lot of destruction here. It was full of people, and this is what they left. This damage is because of the random barrel bombs that Assad forces used to throw on these residential areas from the helicopters.
And these people was like military against the opposition, or also civil people like?
On the Syrian side, it used to be Assad army and Iranian militias and Hezbollah from Lebanon, and Russia joined recently after that in 2014. From this side, the oppositions, which are the local people who rise against Assad in 2011. So after 1 year of protesting, peacefully protesting, and they were getting by Assad, they decide to defend their areas.
Of course. And the opposition party had any alliance with other, I don't know, countries or
yes,
or whatever?
They used to be supported from Turkey and Qatar, but this area was surrounded by Assad army, so there is no way to support them. That's why they dig underneath and they created a big system of channels to move underground when fighting.
Tunnels.
Yeah, so we will move to the other side to show you the tunnels. The tunnel, and from here you can see the checkpoint of Assad army. So this is actually the front line. Now we will walk through the tunnels to check it. Careful.
Y así como ven, entre los edificios habían estos túneles secretos por el cual vamos a entrar para que, bueno, las milicias de la oposición pudieran escapar o moverse. Wow. Yo no puedo creer que esté entrando acá. You telling me that's a new tunnel? Yeah. And people still use it nowadays?
No. It's not what they use. But it's a big system, and in some places it's big enough for a car to move.
Wow. Wow.
It's made by hand.
Yeah. All made by hand.
It's hard to breathe here.
Yeah. This all made by the opposition to survive to Al-Assad regime, right?
Yeah. Because the main weapon for Assad forces was the barrel bombs.
Exactly.
Which destroyed everything.
You know, I can't imagine how it looks, a barrel bomb just being thrown by a helicopter.
Yeah.
Locura, ¿a dónde puede llegar la ambición humana? La gente que literalmente tiene problemas, traumas. Salimos de ese túnel y aquí hay como un pasillito y luego hay otro túnel allá, aunque ese ya está como destruido y ese sí que no me atrevo a entrar, además de que es bastante angosto, bastante pequeño. Hasta la entradita les muestro. ¡Wow! Miren esa locura. Ah. Que literalmente todo alrededor está destruido. Todo. Wow. Y allá pues la placita que honestamente una calle nada más de el lugar o el área que no destruyeron porque habían puntos de control de el gobierno de Al-Assad justo acá. What is sarin gas?
Random killing for everyone. Because all of the area is full of oppositions.
Wow.
It used to call the FSA or the Free Syrian Army. So this area used to be a stronghold for the FSA during the Syrian Revolution.
So that sarin gas is like a chemical weapon.
Yeah, so many kids get killed because of that attack. And he do it a couple of times also in Al Ghouta area in different towns.
Wow.
And you see here, there's some people who are coming back, try to reopen, start their life again.
From the scratch.
Yes.
So first thing I do when I enter October War Museum is
To step on Assad's face.
okay, step on Assad's face. Bueno, este museo se llama el Museo de Octubre, refiriéndose a la guerra de 1973 que tuvo el papá de Bashar al-Assad, se llamaba Hafez al-Assad, en contra de Israel. Pero miren qué loco este carro acá, todo tiroteado en la entrada del museo. Por supuesto, el museo está completamente destruido, pero vamos a ver lo que quedó de él. Porque es que fue construido por Corea del Norte, como para enaltecer a Hafez al-Assad y que las personas que vinieran a conocer el museo pues vieran todos los crímenes de guerra de Israel en contra de Siria y lo enaltecieran como si fuese un dios. De hecho, había una estatua gigante con los brazos abiertos. Vamos a ver si consigo una foto en internet y se la pongo acá. Pero obviamente apenas lo tumbaron a su hijo, destruyeron todo tipo de estatuas, monumentos, carteles, todo lo referente a ambos gobiernos.
And they created this museum after the 73 war by North Korean artists to show the victory of Syria and Egypt on that. So here in this part we have the same vehicles that military vehicles that they used on the 73 war from the Syrian side here, and the one they captured from the Israeli side.
On the other side.
Yeah. So it's all real.
Wow.
I remember when I was a kid, they used to take us here on school trips every year. It was like a part of the brainwash they do for kids then since they are youth.
Wow. Every year
Yeah,
to the same museum.
yeah. And the same story.
Yeah, of course. todos estos tanques y camiones fueron utilizados por Siria. Miren esos lanzacohetes. ¡Wow! Esto que ven acá no fue parte de la guerra, sino una cápsula que volvió del espacio con un astronauta sirio, con el grupo ruso que en esa época pues fue al espacio y volvieron sanos y salvos. Allá están los militares que están custodiando este lugar, que dijeron que no podíamos entrar. Ok, ahora un guardia se nos acercó, habló con Ayub y nos dejó como entrar por la parte de atrás del museo. Y es que, como les vengo diciendo desde el inicio de este video, la gente quiere que se muestre lo que pasó. Quiere que no se repita tanto aquí en Siria y que sea como un ejemplo para el mundo de las atrocidades que puede llegar a cometer un dictador. Así que...
So this is the library of the propaganda museum. You see Assad the father. He's in everywhere. His photos and the books, propaganda books about his life. It's all lies. But
all lies.
so this is the library of stories.
Wow.
This is his son, Bassel. He was preparing this son to be the next president, but he passed away in a car accident in '94.
So that's the brother of Bashar al-Assad.
Yes, the one who's supposed to be the president.
Oh.
And after he passed away, they made so many books about his life, and it's like
Oh my god.
propaganda stuff. And also there is hundreds of books talking about Assad, Hafiz Assad, the father life, and it shows him as a god, not like as a human being.
Of course.
All inspired by North Korea.
All inspired by North Korea. Creo que se los he repetido 350.000 veces a lo largo de esta serie, pero el fanatismo es lo peor que le puede pasar a una persona. Miren, desde un equipo de fútbol, desde una tontería así, no sé si ustedes están conscientes, pero los partidos de Boca River y River Boca en Argentina no pueden ir, visitantes, público visitantes, porque se matan. Y es una locura, todo por el fanatismo. Y esto es una estupidez, llevar el ejemplo del fútbol en comparación a lo que puede llegar a ser dictadores, crímenes de guerra, grupos extremos, religiosos, que obviamente no quiero mencionar la palabra aquí frente a ellos porque pero es impresionante todo lo que el fanatismo puede llegar a causar, y esto es un recordatorio de que no hay que caer en fanatismo.
This is his photo when he visited this place, and this is the military commanders that came with him.
Wow. Esto es súper escalofriante. Además de que hay demasiado frío en este lugar. Súper escalofriante. Si pueden notar, este muchacho está caminando raro, y en verdad el otro también. Y me acaba de decir Ayub que bueno, era porque tienen disparos y lesiones de guerra. Ya llegamos a la prisión de Saidnaya. Al parecer hay que aplicar para una visa de periodismo para que te dejen entrar, y hasta hace como un mes estaban aprobándolas todas, pero ya está muy complicado. Por eso otros colegas youtubers lograron entrar y grabar este lugar por dentro. Estamos tratando de hablar con el guardia, pero bueno, si se logra o no se logra, de igual manera quiero comentarles algunos hechos acerca de Este lugar fue construido en los años 80 por Hafez al-Assad y el propósito inicial era para meter a soldados que cometieran pues crímenes militares, crímenes de guerra, que se rebelaran en contra del gobierno. Pero luego también empezaron a meter a presos políticos que sencillamente pensaran y hablaran en oposición al régimen. Para el año 2011, cuando hubo la guerra civil, el hijo de Hafez al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad, utilizó este lugar como un centro de castigo sistemático. Acá había torturas, había muertes, literalmente como mataban a tantas personas y no tenían en dónde enterrarlos, abrieron como una fosa común, prácticamente un hueco, y ahí lanzaron a personas. Se estima que desde que se abrió la prisión, más de 150.000 personas están enterradas allá adentro en una fosa común o en varias fosas comunes, porque desde que ha estado este régimen en el poder de hace 55 años hasta diciembre de 2024, hay una estadística no oficial, pero más de 1 millón de personas fueron desvividas por el régimen y 13 millones salieron del país. Hoy por hoy hay 12 millones de personas en Siria y en total la población eran unos 26 o 27, contando pues todos los que se han ido, que en su mayoría pues viven en campos de refugiados. Bueno, también han ido a países vecinos como Turquía o algo así. Y otros pues han perdido la vida en el intento. Ahorita tuvimos la oportunidad de hablar con un señor que estuvo preso en 4 ocasiones en esta prisión y él solo era un artista. La primera vez en los años 80 lo metieron preso por 9 años porque creían que él era un mensajero de la oposición y siempre tenía que pagar, sobornar, porque lo extorsionaban muchísimo para que pudiera salir, inclusive para que no lo mataran, porque adentro había como una especie de renta o de alquiler, de vacuna, o como quieran llamarle, que le tenían que pagar a los guardias de seguridad. En Latinoamérica hay cárceles en donde uno tiene que pagarle que a los pranes dentro de la cárcel para que no les hagan nada. Aquí, bueno, aquí los pranes eran la guardia y la gente que custodiaba este lugar, pero leí que habían asesinatos en masas, o sea que pasaban una noche en donde agarraban a 1000 presos y los ahorcaban a todos de una vez y para la fosa común, o les pegaban, bueno, electricidad, los ahogaban, infinitos métodos de tortura que aplicaban en este lugar como mecanismo de represión para evitar que las personas se opusieran al régimen. Ok, nos dieron un acceso súper rápido, solo por 5 minutos. What did he say? Just 5 minutes?
Yeah,
And why is that? Why is it so complicated now?
because they
don't
had some
have, like-
problems because people who was stealing evidence and IDs like from inside, so they closed the place because of that reason. And this is like a big exception. Okay, so our inside Saydnaya prison, the human slaughter, more than 150,000 Syrians been killed in this prison because they expressed their political opinions about the previous regime. So anyone who says something against Assad government, he will end up in this place, and probably he will get killed because the occupancy is this place. It's not huge. It's about like 20-30,000. So when they bring more people, they kill some of the prisoners and replace them with the new ones.
Wow.
It says that they have like mines on both sides, and after liberation they tried to dig and then they took away those mines. Some mines are still there because people were digging for their prisoners just to find if there's like hidden prisons underground, because it happened in Damascus, but they didn't find any in here underground, and they are still trying to find more mines every day.
Wow.
The internal guards.
Yeah, and it's like 3 main parts.
So this is the main building.
Yeah.
because when someone has been brought here, they didn't tell anything to their families.
Exactly. It's like more as a kidnapping thing.
Yeah.
And the worst part about it, that he might die without even knowing anything. So basically, like, families used to pay money for some officers and some soldiers, like, just tell me anything about my son. Is he alive? Is he dead?
Yeah.
But they used to steal money and never told him about it. Actually, only 300 people got out of the prison after liquidation. Thousands have died.
300 people?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just only that.
More than 150,000 people get killed.
Ayub ya ha tenido la oportunidad de venir a esta prisión en 2 o 3 ocasiones antes, por eso más o menos conoce algunos caminos. Nos metimos con el carro por unos pasillos que yo dije hasta dónde está llegando este loco. Pero mírenlo allá adelante. Y de verdad que agradezco mucho su cooperación para poder entrar. La insistencia, estuvimos como 45 minutos afuera hablando con los guardias y claro, ahorita como para poder entrar se necesita un permiso, especialmente para saber quién entra y no poner en riesgo la evidencia de los crímenes de lesa humanidad que se hacían aquí adentro. Obviamente no es tan fácil entrar. En la entrada tuve la oportunidad de conocer a uno de las pocas personas que salieron de este lugar. Era un artista de Hama que estuvo 4 veces preso en esta prisión y la primera duró 9 años, ya luego por periodos cortos de 2 meses, 3 meses, y lograba salir porque, bueno, como artista le iba muy bien y podía sobornar a los guardias para que lo dejaran salir, inclusive para que no lo mataran, porque como escucharon, cuando la prisión se llenaba, pues tenían que matar a presos anteriores, a presos viejos para meter a nuevos y enterrarlos así como si fuese un pedazo de carne lanzado en un pozo.
This is the medical check section, so they keep people here to check them. And here is the worst part of the prison, the single seals section.
Worst part of the prison.
Yes, single seals. You need to be careful because
Watch your steps.
Yeah.
Before execution, the people who wants to get rid from them, they put them like a week before execution here alone, you know. And this is, they say, I had like a local who came here. He told me that they used to put important people here. You know, like.
And I have one question. Why they put him here 1 week before execution?
Because, like, he
This is
needs
the
to be
worst
alone
part.
as a torturing
Yeah.
thing.
this is the single seals bar. But also we heard that they kept like more people in this small seal. At some point, more than 10 people, you see? And some people wrote their memories on the walls.
Wow. You're telling me they have 10 people here?
Yes.
This is like 1 meter square or 2 meters square,
Yes.
something
Exactly,
like
no
that.
lights, nothing. Also, and actually, when the operation, they got them
Wow.
like they were full. You know, they had people who are here. They were not empty.
People were digging underneath looking for secret seals or something because there's so many people lost here. So they were trying to find anything, any evidence of their loved ones. And here you can find the dates and the memories, the names of the prisoners who've been here.
Is that spider net or
Yes.
something? Wow,
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you want to see the most important thing about it?
Yeah.
This cell,
Can you?
11 cell. Do you know the American journalist? The American journalist who was lost
Austin.
during Assad time. They took him as they kidnapped him. And it was his cell, 11.
Austin, right?
Yeah, he stayed there for 12 years exactly.
And he was
And he's not
liberated?
there. Exactly. When liberation, locals came inside and they opened the door for him. He was just there.
Oh, he was a still prisoner
Exactly.
when...
He was for 12 years. He stayed alive and he's still there. And when liberation, they opened the door for him and he got out.
Like in December?
Yeah, exactly. And he was there. We had a local who came here and he was telling us every small detail. He said that they opened the cell and he was there. Like he
Alive.
survived after
Yeah.
12 years in the prison.
And he hasn't post anything or do any interview since he...
No,
Ah.
that's what
That's
that's
what-
creepy
yeah.
about it because
Yeah, yeah.
they never saw him after that. After
Ah,
the
okay,
liberation.
okay.
But they said that they opened the cell and he was here. They also took a hostage of Japanese person also, like different nationalities that
Yeah.
wanted to speak the truth about Assad. It's the renewable part of the prison. They renew it after the international case that what happened between the prisoners and the International Council, the Security Council knew about it, that they have killed prisoner here. So Assad tried to renew it just to show like the Western journalism that, oh, we have, so here you enter. It's like 3 floors, There is a section for females, there is a section for males. It is big. Oh.
Sorry, I'm okay.
So it is big and you can find different.
Also women were in prison here.
Yeah.
Yes, they found some clothes belong to women. This is the main bar, the main section.
Wow.
One bathroom and 100 people.
100 people in this cell.
Yeah. They only can see the light from this part. Yeah.
Wow. And this is
Their
like...
clothes. They left it when they left in the liberation line.
Wow. Man, this is so heartbreaking. Un solo baño. Me imagino que la ducha y la poseta. Una celda de 100 personas.
Can you stay here for 5 minutes?
Yeah. Not 5 because we don't have so much time, but... Wow. Estoy consciente de que voy a salir en 1 minuto y con todo eso es impresionante la ansiedad que se siente, el dolor de barriga. O sea, presenciar que muchas personas murieron acá, estuvieron presas por tantos años que... Miren, estos son pantalones relativamente nuevos. Mira. O sea... Wow. Miren este lugar. Bueno, creo que voy a salir porque tengo como dolor de barriga. No puedo creer que esté dentro de la prisión de Saydnaya en Siria.
This is a female part,
Okay.
First 3 cells for pregnant ladies, and here they look at the sage. They used to in the morning for females and then the evening for males. They used to cut their hair.
So
I was saying that this is the hair room. They used to put the female in the morning and they cut their hair, buzz their hair, and also males.
Wow.
While they're standing.
miren la cantidad de cabello.
So while they're standing, like for cutting, they have to be like this, in this position. They used to torture them. Look at the blood all over them. They used to kill them and torture them.
Oh, shit. It seems like fresh blood, like...
Until the last moment, actually. They were using it until the very last moment.
I don't want to touch it, but
Even in the center, and they used to die because of lack of health care.
Of course.
This used to be the officers' room, and then if you got inside, you will start to see the food, the drinks, and everything. They were drinking alcohol, arak, for the very last moments before running away, when they knew that the oppositions reached Sednaya.
Oh
So,
my God.
This is what.
Yeah, so they were having the good life before.
Yeah, you can see like the orange outfit is for executions, and the other color is for normal prisoners.
Oh, so they put the orange clothes for execution. Wow, miren esto. Esos trajes anaranjados se los ponían a las personas. ¿Cuántos niveles tenía esta prisión? Wow, qué escalofriante. De verdad, súper escalofriante. Bueno, voy a bajar porque tampoco quiero que Ayub, que sí va a aparecer en el video, se meta en problemas. Y tampoco quiero que los guardias que nos dieron acceso se metan en problemas. Y honestamente estoy un poco cagado. Wow. I'm coming.
And the famous story of the Syrian lady who went inside Virgin, stayed there for 14 years for 14 years, and she got out with 4 children, not knowing the father.
Wow.
If you go to see the cells, there's like small cameras on top of every cell. If officers, they used to watch the ladies, and who, like the officer, the lady that he likes, used to take her and rape her. Every Syrian family has like a prisoner here. I had like an uncle here, it's like a far relative uncle, who was here, and he had a really bad story. Like a father and his son, and then the son saw his father being like died in front of him. They killed him in front of him, and then he kept him inside the cell. And then we were lucky to have a surviving local who survived from here. He ran actually here, and he came with us. He was super eager to come again. I said like we are coming to the prison. He said, please make me come. I just want to tell you everything I know. And he went with us, and he told us, here they used to torture us, here they used to cut our hair. He was there in all the actions that happened. So he knows everything about it. And he paid money to put him with females, actually.
Oh.
So he got to see the life of every female.
Okay.
The people who pays for them money, they used to put them with females, not with males, you know, like less torturing.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And he can take a good food, whatever, once he pay more and more and more. So it was kind of like a job for them. It was like a business for them.
This gentleman,
Okay.
he told me that he stayed here for 5 years.
Oh.
From 87 until 92.
Okay.
He stayed here after what happens in Hama back in 80s. So he spent 5 years here. He told me he didn't like to go out because they used to torture people outside as well. So everyone was preferring to stay in the cell.
And can you ask him why did they took him?
ليش اعتقلوك وجابوك لهون؟ شو التهمة؟
التهمة الانتماء للإخوان المسلمين، بس نحن ما قلنا أطفال.
Terrorism. He was 15 years old, but they say he might join the Muslim Brothers
Okay,
back in 80s.
okay. That was like a revolution in Hama.
Yeah, but he was 15 years old on that time, and
Wow.
he spent 5 years here, and 7 years in Palmyra prison.
Wow.
There's a huge, famous prison in Palmyra as well.
How he managed to get out of the prison at that time after 5 years here?
He spent 7 years and 5 years, and after that, they released some of the prisons because
Okay.
they don't have enough evidence against him. He was 15 years
هاي
old.
صورتي وقتها.
This is his photo when he was here, when he get arrested, same age, 15 years.
Wow.
هاي قبل الدخول.
Tell him that if he can describe in a few words how was to live here.
Torturing,
تعذيب،
all
إهانة،
time. They didn't have any rights, any human rights.
الخوف، الإرهاب،
They left after he was
الرهاب كان
released.
بالمنامات.
He stayed for 6 years having the nightmares and the problems
التعذيب كان
because of
رهيب.
this period of his life in this place.
المنظر لحاله مرهق.
So now he's remembering everything.
كان هلا غرف هاي
He
عندنا
used
دولاب.
to torture him in this
هاي
section.
هون يطالعونا.
And he used to stay in this section, the one we went first.
Well, thank you so much for your words, and I'm really grateful that you're free now. En esta plaza de acá los sacaban en el invierno porque, para quienes no sepan, Siria es un país muy frío. En el invierno puede llegar a 0 grados o menos, y los sacaban desnudos, les rociaban agua y los dejaban ahí pasar toda la noche como uno de los tantos métodos de tortura que utilizaron. Me impresiona encontrar personas que estuvieron presos y deciden volver para acá. Me imagino el trauma que debieron tener, que deben tener, porque yo no sé si eso es algo que se supere en la vida, uno sencillamente aprende a vivir con ello. Pero también por mis conversaciones con sirios he notado que están tan acostumbrados a la guerra, pero tan acostumbrados que era como, bueno, sí, mataron a 3 ahí al ladito y cayó una bomba, que se siente hasta como un poco de frialdad, y yo me imagino que es un mecanismo de autodefensa para no sufrir tanto, ¿no? La muchacha, que no recuerdo su nombre, disculpen, me dijo que tenía familiares que habían estado acá, y Ayub también me contó que tuvo 2 primos y un amigo que vinieron acá, y unos de ellos no lo contaron, o sea, literalmente perdieron la vida allá adentro. Y lo loco es que me lo cuenta con de una forma que de cualquier otro modo yo creo que hubiese roto en llanto, pero me imagino que están tan acostumbrados que... Wow.
It says Minesfield.
Minesfield.
Yeah, all of this. It was full of mines.
Entonces en ese pedazo de terreno hay minas. Uno no puede caminar por ahí porque pudiese explotar.
I think it was made in the 80s. The late 80s?
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I read that it was done by Hafez al-Assad in the 80s, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, by like a French designer. And it has been used back then until now, so like a lot of scary memories here. You can't believe how much.
Ayub, you were telling me that you also have a family or friends who...
2 cousins from my aunt's side. They were disappeared during the war, and we knew after a couple of years that they arrested them. And they brought him here. So after the liberation, we didn't get any evidence to know if they are still alive, but probably they've been terminated in this place.
Wow. Wow, I'm so sorry for that, my friend.
One of them, the youngest cousin, he was in the army, and when the revolution started, he decided to leave because he don't want to be a part of this killing.
Yeah.
So they arrested him after that, and we lost him.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry, man. So sorry for you.
Thank you.
So sorry. I have a question for you, Ayub. I read that the former president now, he was like back in the days with Al Qaeda, but then he just quit about it. And do you trust him?
Actually, I believe the best thing for Syria is democracy, but also I believe we are not ready for democracy yet after like 54 years of dictatorship.
Yeah.
So I hope the best for our country, but I think we should get a non-military president.
Yeah.
Like someone who is educated and he care about developing the economy, not to fight. This is my opinion. And this is how we hope to build Syria.
What do you think?
We're just gonna help. Like there's gonna be elections, and I believe that's what's gonna happen. They can't make Syrians be silent anymore.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
they can't.
yeah.
It was by Assad, and we're gonna try not to repeat the same mistake and just be oppressed again. We're just gonna speak up. You know, like if we want a president, we have to say that we want this and we don't want that. You know.
Yeah.
We're just waiting. You know, we have no other options. You know, we're just calling the international ears, like please listen, just do more more settlements. We want peaceful life. We're just waiting if it's gonna happen or no.
I hope everything comes in the best way for you.
Hopefully. Syria really needs peace. Syrians they were the happiest people on earth with no electricity, no water, but no Assad. They were really happy, and they was satisfied with the less. So we deserve a better life. We deserve.
As a grandson of a grandmother, of a Syrian grandmother, I can relate a little bit how could you feel during those times. And I hope that all this big change happens to be the best for the country.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for covering all of that.
Este es el perro más entrenado que he visto en mi vida y apenas tiene unos meses. Miren, se quedó ahí afuera de la prisión como para no agarrar tanto sol en la sombrita. Debe estar calorado, aunque ya le dieron agüita. Man, how old is your dog?
3 months.
3 months is the best 3 months trained dog in life.
And here's the first dog going to Sednaya prison.
Oh my god. Y así se acaba mi recorrido por Siria. Ya me estoy dirigiendo hacia la frontera en carro para cruzar al Líbano y pasar los próximos días ahí antes de salir de este continente. Estoy muy agradecido con todas las personas que fueron parte de este recorrido. El pueblo sirio en general muy amable y de verdad deseo de todo corazón que puedan crecer nuevamente y florecer entre tantas cenizas y escombros que hay a lo largo y ancho de todo el país.